A flicker of movement by the side of the house caught Mrs. Miller's eye, but she saw nothing. Not far away, her conversation with Ethan continued. She wondered aloud if he had any memory of that time at the orphanage, of what had really happened. She asked if it was true that he hadn't liked her, if that was why he had hidden. Leo's heart hammered against his ribs, a deafening drumbeat in his ears. His fingers clawed at the clapboard siding of the house, his manicured nails scraping against the painted wood. Had Ethan hidden? Could it be true? He desperately wanted to hear the answer, and at the same time he was terrified of it. A single, certain thought spiraled in his mind. If Ethan had hidden, it wasn't because he disliked Mrs. Miller. It would have been for him, because Ethan loved him. Leo knew it. He pulled his hand back, wanting to clamp his palms over his ears to block out the world. But then, Ethan's crisp, clear voice cut through the air. He said he couldn't remember it clearly. Leo's hand fell slowly, pressing against the frantic rhythm in his chest. He squeezed his eyes shut, but the images still came, fragmented and hazy. Two small boys. One was crying, his small voice thick with fear as he asked his brother when they could go home. The other held him, a warm and steady presence, promising that he would always protect him. The smaller boy was inconsolable, clutching at his brother's shirt, his words choked with sobs. He recounted a story from another boy, an older boy who had been adopted by a mean family that hit him, a boy who had run away and come back. The smaller boy confessed he was afraid of being hurt. His brother had wiped away his tears and promised him that he, Leo, would find a wonderful family, people who would cherish him. It was a certainty. Leo. His heart felt as though a cold fist had closed around it, squeezing until pain shot through him. Tears welled, hot and sudden, spilling down his cheeks. He hated it. He hated this feeling, this suggestion that Ethan had somehow sacrificed his own chance at a family for him. It wasn't true. His parents had wanted him. They had loved him most. In the garden, Mrs. Miller sighed, her voice tinged with the melancholy of memory. She remarked on how young they had both been. She told Ethan how Leo had waited for him that day until dusk, how his small form had been racked with sobs when he didn't appear. On the way home, he had collapsed, burning with a fever for 2 straight days. She confessed that the fear had nearly given her a heart attack. Even now, the memory was sharp and unsettling. Recalling his tiny, feverish body brought a fresh wave of anxiety. She had stayed by his side for 48 hours, never changing, never leaving, until his fever broke. Only then did she succumb to illness herself. Having already seen so many unfortunate children at the center, and with Leo falling so ill on his first day home, she had made a vow. He had lost his birth parents, so she would love him with the strength of 1,000 mothers. She patted the last of the soil into place around a new seedling and recalled a story that now seemed almost amusing. She mentioned how their other son, Miles, had once thrown a tantrum, crying and accusing her of only loving Leo. He had stormed out, claiming he would check into a hotel and that she wouldn't even care if he died out there. It was Leo who had gone to Miles' school every day after his own classes let out, waiting for him. Miles had ignored him for a month, until the day Leo was cornered by bullies. Miles had launched himself into the fight, emerging with a bloody face and carrying Leo home on his back. From that day forward, he had been fiercely protective of his younger brother. This was the first time Leo had ever heard this story. He had no memory of it. An unwelcome thought intruded. If his parents had adopted Ethan instead, would Miles have been so kind from the start? Probably not. The devotion Miles showed him was unique. He couldn't possibly offer that to someone else. Leo pressed his hands hard against his ears, but he could still hear Ethan's voice, calm and measured. Ethan was saying that meeting them was Leo's good fortune. "Stop it. Don't say another word." He couldn't listen anymore. Leo bit down on his lip, his composure shattering. He scrubbed at his eyes with the back of his hand and fled. Mrs. Miller heard a faint scuff of gravel and glanced toward the side of the house, but the space was empty. The new flowers were planted. Her hands were caked with dirt, so she stood and suggested they go inside to wash up, remarking that the water from the outside spigot was freezing. Ethan's gaze caught the last glimpse of Leo's retreating figure. He brushed the soil from his own fingertips. Back in the living room, Miles and Mr. Miller were still hunched over the chessboard, a silent battle raging between them. Mrs. Miller commented with a laugh that she was right, that playing chess with those two could drive a person mad with impatience. Ethan offered a small smile, mentioning that he had once waited 2 days for an opponent to make a move. Mrs. Miller expressed her astonishment at such a long wait. Suddenly, a voice called out her name from the staircase. It was Miles. He had just come down. She asked if he was heading out. Miles shot a quick, almost imperceptible glance at Ethan before descending the last few steps, casually stating he was not. He was wearing a fresh suit, his hair perfectly styled. His mother found it odd but didn't press the issue. She noted that he was just now getting up and that lunch would be ready soon, suggesting he have a snack if he was hungry. In the kitchen, the caterer they'd hired for the family dinner was already at work. Miles entered the living room, where a coffee table was laden with bowls of nuts, cookies, and crackers. He picked up a box of crackers, tearing it open and biting into one with a deliberate slowness, his eyes drifting intermittently toward Ethan. Since Miles had entered, Ethan had not looked at him once. His attention was fixed solely on the chessboard. Just a moment ago, he had been speaking with Mrs. Miller. A profound irritation settled over Miles, and he ground the cracker to dust between his teeth. After some time, Miles finally saw his opening on the board. The piece he had been holding for what felt like an eternity finally landed with a soft click. He looked up at Ethan, a flicker of triumph in his eyes, but it was short-lived. Ethan, as if having anticipated this exact move for the past 10 minutes, picked up his own piece and placed it on the board with a sharp, definitive tap. Mr. Miller clapped his hands together, his voice full of admiration. He exclaimed that Ethan's move was brilliant, that Miles was finished. Miles stared intently at the board for several minutes before pushing his glasses up his nose, a resigned smile touching his lips as he admitted defeat. He began resetting the pieces, immediately demanding another game. Miles didn't understand chess. His gaze settled on Ethan's face as he chewed his cracker. He muttered under his breath about whether he was really that good. His father shot him a sideways glance, remarking that he had tried to teach him, but Miles had only been interested in video games. Now he couldn't even follow a simple game of chess. He told him he had no idea that Ethan was practically a master. Miles was reminded of the night at the bar. He had lost to Ethan at dice, and even though he had won the second round, looking back, he couldn't shake the feeling that Ethan had let him win. That sense of Ethan controlling the entire situation was intensely grating. He watched the second game unfold, and when it concluded, Mrs. Miller suddenly voiced her confusion, asking if Leo was still asleep. Miles came back to himself with a jolt. That was right. Why hadn't Leo come down? He was supposedly so fond of his biological brother. He started toward the stairs to wake him, but his father interjected, saying that Leo had been up early and must have gone out. Mrs. Miller tapped her husband's forehead lightly, reminding him that Leo wouldn't have gone out when Ethan was visiting for dinner. She picked up her phone and dialed Leo's number. The phone vibrated in his palm. 48 minutes. For 48 minutes, Leo had stood just beyond the large picture window of the living room, watching his family laugh and interact with Ethan, a perfect, happy scene he wasn't part of. It took them 48 minutes to even think of looking for him. A fresh wave of self-pity stung his eyes. He forcefully powered off the phone and turned away. If they didn't care, then they didn't have to find him. Shoving the phone in his pocket, he ran to the garage, slammed the car into gear, and sped away. Mrs. Miller couldn't get through. She tried again as she walked toward the stairs, announcing she was going up to check on him. Ethan placed a final chess piece on the board, his expression serene. He knew where Leo was. Whenever Leo felt wronged or hurt, his first instinct was always to run to Julian. But Julian wasn't at his estate right now. 10 minutes ago, in a move that was entirely out of character, Julian had posted a picture online. It was of the small succulent plant. It was sitting on his office desk. Leo drove without a destination, his mind a blur of hurt. When he finally pulled over and rolled down the window, he found himself outside the gates of Julian's estate. Julian. A fresh surge of misery washed over him. He gripped the steering wheel, wishing he could throw himself into Julian's arms and cry until he had no tears left. He missed him so much. He got out of the car and ran to the gate, pressing the buzzer impatiently, desperate to see him. A housekeeper's voice came through the speaker, a polite inquiry as to who was calling. Leo sniffled, identifying himself as Leo Miller and asking for Julian. The housekeeper informed him that Mr. Croft was not in. Leo's heart sank. He asked where he had gone. The housekeeper, unaware of Julian's schedule and not authorized to share it with a stranger regardless, politely stated that she didn't know. Leo then asked when he would be back, but the answer was the same. She wasn't sure. Dejected, Leo understood. A man of Julian's stature would have countless obligations during the holidays. He sat in his car for a while, lost in thought, before reversing and driving away. Now, there was only one other person to go to. Mrs. Miller couldn't find Leo in his room or anywhere else on the second floor. She came downstairs, puzzled, wondering if he really had gone out. Her gaze fell on Ethan, and she sighed quietly, embarrassed that he had to witness this family drama. She slipped into the pantry, closed the door, and made a call. The other end picked up quickly. A young man's voice said hello. Mrs. Miller's tone brightened as she greeted Noah and asked if Leo was with him. Noah was about to say no when the gates to his own family's driveway swung open and a car sped in. He changed his response, confirming that Leo was there and asking if something was wrong. So he had gone out to play. That boy. How could he be so thoughtless toward Ethan? Mrs. Miller sighed internally, assured Noah it was nothing, and told them to have fun and be safe. Noah promised he would look after him. Reassured, she hung up. Emerging from the pantry, she offered an excuse. She explained that Noah had needed Leo for something and that he would be back as soon as they were done. The family all knew Noah, but she explained to Ethan that he was one of Leo's friends from high school, a student at the same university, though she wasn't sure which department. Miles snorted dismissively, stating he was in the biology department. He stared at Ethan, who had mentioned he was trying to transfer into that very department this semester. Ethan just smiled and said it was no problem, that whatever it was must be important. Mrs. Miller's heart softened. This boy was so well-mannered. She sat down next to him, suggesting that for their next get-together, they should invite his parents, as they would all be family soon and should get to know one another. Ethan stated frankly that he had cut ties with them. The statement hung in the air. The Millers all looked at him, their expressions a mixture of shock and confusion. Cut ties? Ethan offered a faint smile, explaining that they had been unable to have children and had adopted him, but then had a biological child the following year. He left it at that, but the implication was clear to everyone. Mrs. Miller looked at Ethan's slender frame. She had always assumed his family was not well off, that he simply hadn't had enough to eat. Now, hearing this, she understood. He had been mistreated. Why adopt a child only to favor your own? It was utterly irresponsible. She felt a surge of anger on his behalf, followed by a profound sympathy. She patted his arm, telling him to come to their house often, that they were his family now. Mr. Miller readily agreed. The older brother, the one who didn't play chess, simply offered Ethan an encouraging smile. Only Miles looked at Ethan with a complex expression. So that was his home life. No wonder he had been working in a bar. His gaze fell again to Ethan's hands. They were rough, like the hands of a laborer twice his age. Had he been working nonstop just to make ends meet? And on the holiday, had he been all alone, not with the adoptive family he had fallen out with? Did Leo know any of this? Miles was lost in thought. Lunch was a lavish spread, but Leo did not return. Afterward, Ethan announced his intention to leave. Mrs. Miller protested, insisting he stay the night as planned, that Leo would surely be back in the evening and the guest room was all ready. Miles watched Ethan silently. Before Ethan could respond, the other brother intervened. He claimed to be too full for more chess and suggested they play some video games instead. He mentioned that Miles had a huge collection of classic, rare games and had even set up an entire game room on the second floor that was amazing. Ethan politely demurred, explaining that he had never really played video games and wouldn't know how. This was the opportunity Miles had been waiting for. He leaned back, a smirk playing on his lips, and asked if he didn't know how or was just afraid to lose. The other brother laughed it off, saying it was just for fun and winning or losing didn't matter. He stood up, gently pulling Ethan by the arm toward the second floor, insisting that young people should play more games before they got to his age and no longer had the energy. This time, Ethan did not refuse. Miles felt a surge of adrenaline. The chance for redemption was here. He had never lost at a video game in his life. He would utterly demolish Ethan today. He followed them eagerly up the stairs. The game room was at the far end of the hall. Inside, several dance machines stood against one wall, along with a row of classic arcade cabinets. 5 large flat-screen TVs were mounted on another wall, dedicated to console gaming. The room was easily over 1,000 square feet. Ethan had never seen anything like it. His gaze swept across the room and landed on 2 gumball machines and a claw machine filled with stuffed animals, looking distinctly out of place on the far wall. Miles, noticing Ethan's focus, cleared his throat loudly. He covered his mouth with his fist, his voice a little strained as he explained that those were for Leo. Ethan showed no reaction, simply walking over to where the other brother stood. A flicker of annoyance crossed Miles's face, and he let out a quiet, contemptuous huff. The brother was crouched down, pulling open a long drawer beneath the TVs. It was filled with a dazzling array of game discs. Thinking of Ethan's inexperience, he tried to find something easy to start with. He rarely played himself, so he called out to Miles for a recommendation for a 3-player versus game that was easy to pick up. Miles leaned against the wall, arms crossed, his eyes fixed on Ethan's back. He scoffed, questioning who would play an easy versus game. He suggested that if he wanted easy, he should just play Leo's claw machine. The brother frowned slightly. Miles wasn't usually like this. Today he was prickly and sarcastic. He was about to reprimand him when Ethan pointed to a game case. He asked what that one was like. Miles craned his neck to see. The brother pulled it out. Savage Frontier. It was an old multiplayer combat game, popular when he was in elementary school. The premise was simple. Mercenaries from different factions battling in a deadly forest, scavenging for gear and health packs, eliminating enemies and even teammates. The last one standing escaped with all the loot. Miles recognized the game disc. Savage Frontier. The controls were 5-star difficulty. It was one of his favorites. Leo had played with him a few times, and Miles had beaten him so badly he cried and refused to play ever again. He couldn't help it. A brother was a brother, but a game was a game. He never went easy on anyone. Leo, who was decent at most games, wouldn't dare play this with him anymore. An absolute beginner like Ethan would stand no chance. In a rare moment of kindness, Miles advised him to pick another one, that he wouldn't be responsible if he lost so badly he started crying. The brother also thought Savage Frontier was too difficult for a novice. His own best performance in the game had been when he managed to team up with Miles to eliminate the other players, only to be immediately shot in the back by Miles himself. Playing against Miles offered zero enjoyment, though the game itself was undeniably thrilling. He was about to put it back, suggesting they play a racing game instead, which was also exciting. But Ethan's lips curved into a slight smile. He said this one would be fine. The disc went into the console, and 3 of the TVs lit up. The brother sat cross-legged in the middle, with Ethan and Miles on either side. The floor was covered with a soft rug, and there were several low tables scattered about. Mrs. Miller brought in platters of fresh-cut fruit, snacks, and glasses of freshly squeezed vegetable juice. Miles complained, asking why they were having veggie juice and not Coke. As he sat, his mother lightly tapped him on the head, telling him to drink less soda and that the juice was healthier. He muttered that it might be healthy, but it tasted awful. Mrs. Miller then asked Ethan what he would like for dinner so she could tell the chef. Miles sneered internally. A goody two-shoes like Ethan would definitely say he wasn't picky. Instead, the young man's voice came out, crisp and clear. He asked if they could have pineapple shrimp. Miles paused, then took a large, resentful gulp of his vegetable juice. Mrs. Miller smiled warmly, assuring him they could, as they had both shrimp and pineapple. She drew the curtains, leaving only 2 low-wattage lamps on, creating the perfect atmosphere for a dark, intense game. As she closed the door, she told them to have fun and that she would call them when dinner was ready. The screen displayed the game's backstory, and a few minutes later, it switched to character selection. With only 3 players, they each chose a different faction. Miles popped a piece of candy into his mouth and selected the character with the most difficult controls. He glanced past his brother at Ethan. He could only see his profile. Ethan had a cool, detached air that often made people overlook the sharp, defined lines of his features. The angle of his jaw was like a clean, diagonal line. The dim light cast shadows on his long, thick eyelashes, creating the illusion that he was a soldier on a real battlefield, focused and serious. Sucking on his candy, Miles spoke casually, offering to let the 2 of them team up against him. His brother, adjusting his controller, told him not to be so cocky, that he was going down today one-on-one. Miles didn't reply. He was waiting for Ethan's answer. Ethan said nothing, but on the screen, his character selected a faction different from his brother's. The candy in Miles's mouth shattered with a sharp crack. He chewed the fragments aggressively. He was going to teach Ethan a lesson today. There were times and places for pretending to be something you're not. After character selection, the game began. Each screen showed the perspective of the player controlling it. It was Ethan's first time, but the controller layout was intuitive, and he quickly got the hang of it. Within minutes, he was shot in the head by Miles. Miles glanced at him, the remnants of the candy still in his mouth, chewing slowly. He reminded them that he had offered them a team-up. His brother turned to Ethan, telling him not to worry, that he was doing great. The first time he played, he couldn't even figure out how to walk. The first round was just for practice. Ethan just smiled. Soon, the brother was also taken out by a surprise attack from Miles. The game reset. Miles, who had long grown bored of this game, was playing with unusual enthusiasm today, specifically targeting Ethan. It was so obvious that his brother noticed, kicking him lightly and giving him a look not to take it too far. Miles ignored him. He had given Ethan a chance to team up in the first round. It was Ethan's own fault for being arrogant. He would just have to face the consequences. After a few more rounds like this, the brother was also getting frustrated. Every time he started to get into it, Miles would take him out. It was no fun at all. He decided to give up and suggest a different game. After his character died one more time, the sound of another player's death cry echoed through the room. The brother didn't even look at his screen, assuming Ethan had also been eliminated. He turned to him. "Ethan, maybe we should..." He stopped mid-sentence. His eyes shifted to the screen. The character in camouflage was still standing. That was Ethan's screen. If he wasn't down, then the one who was. His brother's voice was full of shock. "You beat Miles." Ethan, holding the controller, turned his head slightly. He said calmly that it was just good luck. And it was true that Miles had revealed his position when he took out the other brother. Still, it was the first time anyone had ever beaten Miles. The brother gave him a thumbs up. "Good luck is still good," he said, turning to Miles. The dim light from the screen illuminated Miles's face. He stared at his fallen character, his eye twitching. Bullshit. It wasn't luck at all. He had found a hiding spot before taking out his brother. He had the perfect vantage point. The only way to get him was in the single second it took him to get into position. It was clear that Ethan had predicted his move, timed his long-range shot perfectly, and taken him out. Miles whipped his head around to look at Ethan. Ethan was taking a sip of water, his movements so composed that it gave off that same feeling of being in complete control. That was the look he hated most. That dismissive, indifferent attitude. It was the same at the bar with the dice, the same on the sidewalk that morning when he threatened him. An even more infuriating thought occurred to him. In the previous rounds, was it possible Ethan had intentionally let himself be killed, just to analyze his moves, using him as a practice dummy? Miles gritted his teeth. Again, he demanded. Ethan calmly set down his glass of water, picked up the controller, and turned back to the screen. This time, Miles was no longer casual. He was completely focused, his hands flying over the controller. His brother was the first to be eliminated. He watched the duel with great interest, letting out occasional gasps of surprise. Miles was playing at his peak, but Ethan's movements were no longer those of a beginner. Every time it looked like Miles had him, Ethan would slip behind cover at the last second. It seemed as if he was intentionally revealing his position to bait Miles into shooting, forcing him to waste ammunition. It was a high-risk, high-reward strategy that required incredible skill. Even Miles rarely played so recklessly against a skilled opponent. The brother looked over at Miles and was stunned. Miles's face was taut with concentration, his muscles tense. He had never seen him take a game so seriously, or rather, been forced to take a game so seriously. Ethan was equally focused. From the game's introduction, he had identified the key to victory: positioning. So, in the first few rounds, he hadn't focused on dodging or fighting, but on memorizing every hiding spot and resource location on the map. Once he knew the map and the controls, it was simpler than he had imagined. Miles was a skilled player, but he had a fatal flaw. He had never lost, and he couldn't stand to lose. Losing once made him desperate for a quick revenge kill, which only left him more exposed. As a beginner, Ethan couldn't match Miles in pure skill, but he had patience. He used his knowledge of the map to drag out the fight. The more anxious Miles became, the more mistakes he made. All Ethan needed to do was wait for the critical one. A flicker of light crossed Ethan's eyes. He pressed the buttons on his controller decisively. His character dropped from the shadows of a tree, landing directly behind an unsuspecting opponent. The barrel of his gun pressed to the back of his head. A bang, a cry. The character fell. Game over. All three screens displayed the same message. Winner E. Ethan's player ID. After 4 hours of one-on-one combat, it was over. Miles's eyes were red with frustration. Just then, the door to the game room opened, and Mrs. Miller poked her head in, announcing that dinner was ready. Before they went downstairs, Ethan took out his phone. 32 missed calls from Caleb. Leo still wasn't back for dinner. No one mentioned it. After the meal, Ethan played 2 more games of chess with Mr. Miller before saying his goodbyes again. Mrs. Miller grabbed his arm, refusing to let him leave, insisting that Leo would be back any minute and that he had promised to stay. The older brother smiled and gently persuaded his mother, suggesting that Ethan might have things to do and that since he lived so close, it wasn't as if he would never visit again. Ethan politely explained that he had a lot of material to catch up on for his transfer next semester and also needed to get his driver's license before classes started. He promised to visit whenever he had free time after this busy period. This immediately shifted Mrs. Miller's focus. She was thrilled for him, exclaiming how wonderful it was that his transfer had been successful. Mr. Miller and the brother also expressed their admiration. After a bit more conversation, Mrs. Miller finally relented, telling the brother to drive Ethan home since their driver was off for the holiday. "I'll drive him," Miles said suddenly. He had been silent since the gaming session. He walked to the entryway, grabbing his jacket and changing his shoes. He added that his brother's eyesight wasn't great for driving at night. Mrs. Miller had no objection. She had assumed Miles would be unwilling to drive someone so late, which is why she hadn't asked. Now that he had offered, it was for the best. She followed them to the car, repeatedly telling him to drive slowly and not to run any red lights. Miles, his patience wearing thin, assured her he understood. She then went around to the passenger side, where the window was down. She smiled and handed Ethan some cash, preemptively stating that all 3 of her boys got a gift, and if he refused, she would go dig up the flowers he had given her. Ethan's eyes curved in a smile as he accepted the money, thanking her. Mrs. Miller patted his hand, affectionately telling him he was a good boy and repeating her invitation to visit any time. Ethan agreed. Only then did she step back, watching the car pull out of the driveway before she returned to the house. Inside the car, Miles gripped the steering wheel tightly. He wanted to ask Ethan if he had really never played that game before. Was he lying? It was the first time he had ever lost, let alone been beaten twice in a row. He opened his mouth several times but couldn't bring himself to ask. Frustrated, he turned on the radio. A rock song filled the silence. The atmosphere became slightly less awkward, and Miles let out a silent sigh of relief. Then Ethan spoke. He asked to be dropped at the next intersection. Miles didn't quite hear him over the music and asked what he said. Ethan repeated his request. Miles frowned. He asked what he meant. Ethan's voice was flat. "You dislike me, and I detest you. Sharing a car was just for your mother's benefit." A knot of anger tightened in Miles's chest. He glanced at Ethan, then yanked the steering wheel, screeching to a halt at the upcoming intersection, as if he wanted to give him a ride. Ethan unbuckled his seatbelt. "Thank you." He opened the door, got out, and started walking down the main road. That polite thank you was like a knife to Miles's gut. He slammed his hand against the steering wheel. Damn it! A moment later, he looked up, his eyes following the figure that was growing smaller in the distance. Ethan reached the main road and waited. After some time, a taxi finally appeared. He gave the driver his address and pulled out his phone. It was 10:30. His eyes scanned the screen as he opened his social media app. Meanwhile, Julian was still at the office. The lights were on, and a stack of files sat on his desk, but he wasn't working. He was staring at his social media page. His first ever post had a row of likes from his inner circle. One friend, Chris, had spammed the comments. "Did our Julian get hacked? What is this? A flower? A lotus? Dude, is that really you? My man actually posted something. The world is ending tomorrow. I have to screenshot this for posterity." Over 10 years, his first post. The first one, people. Another friend, Sean, had replied, "Chris, stop freaking out." But he couldn't resist adding, "But seriously, that's his office in the background. When did he start growing succulents?" Chris replied to Sean, "What's a succulent?" Sean replied to Chris, "Google it." Chris replied again, "Googled it." So our man is going green now, saving the planet one tiny plant at a time. Julian didn't reply to any of them. After a moment, his finger tapped the screen, backing out of the page. As he did, a small red notification icon appeared. His throat moved as he swallowed, and he clicked back into the app. A default profile picture, with the username 52Hz, had liked the post. The timestamp was 10:31 p.m. Julian stared at the default avatar. 5 minutes passed, maybe 10. He turned off the screen, pushed back his chair, and stood up. Without changing his clothes, he went into the adjoining rest area and retrieved a long, black down coat, custom-made to withstand sub-zero temperatures. He took the elevator down to the parking garage. The trunk of his car was filled with high-end fishing gear. He drove to his private lake. The night was still, the lake a sheet of black glass. The weather had warmed slightly, and only a few large chunks of ice remained floating on the surface. In the dead of night, a single lamp cast a lonely glow. Julian set up a single chair and a single fishing rod. His blurred reflection remained motionless on the water's surface. In the vast, empty valley, even the wind seemed to have stopped. But his mind was anything but calm. Time passed. The sky began to lighten with a faint, buttery glow. The float on his fishing line finally bobbed. Julian didn't move to pull it in. He watched the float tremble violently, and only when it stilled did he lift the rod. The fish, of course, was gone. The bait, too. At 7 in the morning, Julian packed up his gear. He hadn't slept, but he showed no signs of fatigue. He was used to long nights and constant travel. 2 or 3 hours of sleep was often enough. He drove back to the city. He didn't go to the office or his family's estate. He went to the penthouse where Ethan had stayed. It was exactly as he had left it. Julian changed into slippers, took a shower, and emerged with a robe tied around his waist. He went to the kitchen, boiled an egg, toasted some bread with bacon, and opened the fridge for water. His eyes fell on the unopened cartons of blueberries. He didn't have a sweet tooth. He could count the number of times he ate fruit in a year on both hands. He looked at them for a moment, then took out a carton, washed the berries, and brought everything to the table. Dining alone, the room was silent. He recalled the last time he had sat here, with Ethan across from him. The simple noodle soup with an egg he had eaten then was the most delicious meal he could remember. After a moment of distraction, he cleared the dishes, washed them, and, his hair now mostly dry, walked toward the bedroom. He paused at the guest room door and turned the knob. The room was clean, the bedding fresh and smelling of laundry detergent. The curtains were drawn back, tied with intricate, decorative knots. Just then, his assistant called. The opening day for the new theme park was set for the 15th. In addition to the daytime festivities, Julian had asked the planning department for proposals for an evening event. They had submitted them just before the holiday break. They were uninspired, the usual light shows and fireworks displays found at any other park. With only 10 days left, Julian still hadn't approved a plan. The assistant was calling to check on the status. Julian's gaze rested on the decorative knots. An idea formed. Sky lanterns, he said. It was a tradition, but connecting it to a theme park was unexpected. The assistant was silent for a few seconds. After hanging up, he realized the brilliance of the idea. The guests invited to the opening were children from orphanages across the country. Light and fireworks shows were magical, but allowing them to write their wishes on lanterns and release them into the sky was far more meaningful. It would be expensive, requiring special permits and a massive cleanup effort, but it seemed their boss was willing to spare no expense on this project. At 6 in the morning, Ethan woke up. The DMV would reopen after the holiday, and he could register for his permit test. He wasn't going to a driving school. With his savings, he could afford a decent used car. He knew of a deserted, open area perfect for practicing. He could get his license in about 45 days. Car would make fishing easier. It would also make helping his mother, Serena, easier. If his calculations were correct, Caleb was holding her in a vacation villa. In the original story, he had been trapped there for 3 years. He knew every room, every piece of furniture. Caleb loved his mother, desperate for her affection, but his methods were extreme. A caged bird that had tasted freedom for over a decade would not willingly return to another gilded cage. She had her own dreams, her own life. All he had to do was wait for the moment she decided to escape. Ethan watched the egg frying in the pan. He turned off the heat, placed the egg on top of a simple bowl of noodle soup, sprinkled some chopped green onions on top, and quickly ate his breakfast standing in the kitchen. Then he went to his room to study for the permit test. After a quick review, he picked up his phone. After those 32 missed calls, Caleb hadn't called again. That wasn't his style. If something hadn't been holding him back, he would have been at his door, furious. Ethan remembered that around this time, Caleb's grandfather, Mr. Croft, had been hospitalized. At the city's top private hospital, Julian had gone to visit as well. In the original story, Caleb had told Leo about it, and Leo had rushed to the hospital hoping for a chance encounter with Julian, but Julian had only stayed for a short time. It ended up being just Caleb and Leo alone. Leo had mentioned returning something to Caleb, but nothing had come of it. He must have returned it at some point, as they had fought and sworn off their friendship more than once. But if they had met, given their emotional states, it wouldn't have been a peaceful encounter. It was more likely that Leo had returned the item without ever seeing Caleb. Ethan's eyes narrowed. He dialed Leo's number. Leo hadn't slept. He sat hugging his knees, staring out the window, ignoring the buzzing of his phone. Noah entered with a breakfast tray. Seeing Leo's state, he frowned. He had never seen him so dejected. Since they had met, Leo had always been like a little son, full of endless energy, his world seemingly devoid of sadness. Noah approached slowly. The phone was still ringing, and he could see the caller ID. Ethan? The name sounded familiar. A few seconds later, he remembered. Before the break, his professor had mentioned that a brilliant student from the software engineering department was transferring into their class next semester. His name was also Ethan. The professor had praised this Ethan to the high heavens, as if he had discovered a hidden gem. Noah set down the breakfast tray and asked who Ethan was. The name was like a trigger for Leo. He whipped his head around, his eyes wide with panic, his voice shrill. "What did you say?" Noah, taken aback, pointed to his phone. "Your phone." Leo looked at the flashing name, bit his lip, and finally answered just before it went to voicemail. He didn't speak first, just held the phone to his ear, his jaw clenched. Ethan's cool, gentle voice came through the line. "Leo, are you done with your thing?" Leo knew his mother must have called Noah and fabricated some errand. He also knew it was rude to invite Ethan over and then disappear, but he couldn't help it. He was afraid to face him. He felt inferior and jealous. His mother had originally wanted to adopt a girl, but changed her mind the moment she saw Ethan at the orphanage. And even though they were twins, Ethan was taller, more handsome, and his grades were infinitely better. Everyone liked Ethan. When Ethan was around, everyone else seemed to forget about him. He had lost all his confidence. "No," Leo mumbled. "Ah, I see," Ethan said with a light laugh. "That's okay. I'll go by myself." Leo's voice was small. "Go see what?" "I'm thinking of buying a used car," Ethan said, his tone suggesting a hint of helplessness. "But I don't know the first thing about them." "Don't know the first thing?" The despair that had been crushing Leo vanished in an instant. Ethan didn't know something, but he did. Leo jumped to his feet. "My thing can wait. I'll go with you. Where should we meet?" He was already walking out the door. After a few more words, he hung up and turned back, his eyes burning with a strange intensity as he looked at a bewildered Noah. "Noah, if one day the whole world abandoned me, would you still be on my side?" Noah was silent for a moment, then a smile spread across his face. "I would." At the same time, Julian was awakened by a phone call. His father, Arthur Croft, was in the hospital. He arrived within half an hour. In the hospital room, a doctor was taking his father's blood pressure. Caleb, who had stayed up all night, was asleep on the sofa. His other son, Henry, stood by the bed. Arthur Croft saw Julian arrive and let out a non-committal grunt. Henry pretended to have just noticed him, greeting him with a smile. Julian nodded and walked over to ask the doctor about his father's condition. On the sofa, Caleb woke up. He was terrified of Julian, so he pulled the blanket tighter and pretended to still be asleep. The doctor explained the situation. It was the usual high blood pressure, not serious, but he would need to stay for observation. "All right, you've made your appearance," Arthur said with a cold expression. "You can go now." As the nurse packed up the equipment, Henry adjusted his father's sleeve and remarked to Julian how his father was always talking about him, yet pushed him away the moment he arrived. Arthur cut him off, scoffing at the idea of a father and son who don't even share a holiday meal together. He declared that Julian only cared about the family business, not the family itself. The doctor and nurse quietly exited the room. Henry, having achieved his goal, said nothing more, waiting for Julian to respond. But Julian simply left. "Contact me if anything changes." Arthur trembled with rage, watching his sons retreating back. Henry rushed to calm him down. The room was on the second floor. Julian took the stairs instead of the elevator. He got into his car in the hospital parking lot, fastened his seatbelt, and checked his watch. 11:45 a.m. He pulled out of the hospital, planning to find a place for lunch before heading back to the office. His phone rang. It was Sean inviting him to play golf. "I'm busy." Julian stopped at a red light. Sean's voice filled the car, asking if he could do anything besides work and fish. Julian didn't answer. Suddenly, his gaze froze. On the nearly empty sidewalk, he thought he saw Ethan walk by. Ethan at the bar, out of place. Ethan in the frozen lake, clear-headed and cooperative. Ethan in the hospital bed, pale and weak. Ethan on the university's honor roll. Ethan under the eaves, offering him noodle soup. Ethan wishing him a happy new year. Ethan, full of secrets. The winter sky was dim, a gray haze blanketing the city. But the young man was the only spot of color. Sean's voice came through again. "Julian, you there?" The light started flashing. 9:08. Julian spoke. "That night at the bar, you asked me what I was doing in the booth." Sean took a moment to recall. "The bachelor party? Yeah, what about it?" 3:02. Julian hit the turn signal. At the last second, he changed direction. "I was watching him." He hung up. They met at a large used car dealership. Leo slowed his car, searching for a parking spot. He soon spotted Ethan standing on the sidewalk by the road. Ethan was wearing a simple, single-breasted black coat and a thick, burgundy knit scarf. Even standing still, he drew glances from passers-by. It wasn't just his striking appearance, but a certain cool, distant quality that naturally drew the eye. A gloomy thought surfaced in Leo's mind. If Julian ever met Ethan, would he be like everyone else and like him too? The very idea made it hard for Leo to breathe. Anyone else he could tolerate, but not Julian. Julian belonged to him. He shook his head, trying to clear the thoughts away. Just then, he saw Ethan wave in his direction. At the same moment, his phone rang. It was Ethan. Leo answered, and Ethan's voice filled the car, telling him to follow his lead, that there was a spot up ahead. Once he started comparing himself to Ethan, even the smallest details began to bother him. Even his eyesight was better. He had been looking for a spot for ages. Leo sullenly followed Ethan's directions to a narrow space between two cars. His reverse parking was terrible. Usually, he would have called Caleb or Miles for help. Today, with only Ethan, who didn't even have his license yet, Leo gritted his teeth and tried several times, failing each time. His palms grew sweaty with anxiety. He desperately didn't want to embarrass himself in front of Ethan. Then Ethan's voice came again, asking if he was having trouble. Leo gripped the steering wheel, stubbornly insisting he could do it. But the car went in more crooked each time, once nearly scraping the bumper of the car next to him. He gave up. Just then, Ethan put away his phone, walked up to the driver's side, and tapped on the window. Leo, his face flushed, rolled it down. "I'll get it. Get out, let me try," Ethan said at the same time. Leo felt as if his throat had been squeezed shut. You learned to drive already?" It had only been a couple of months since Ethan mentioned getting his license, and during that time he had been working, studying for finals, and then there was the holiday break. Leo felt another pang of inadequacy. He had learned to drive with Miles at 15, got his license at 18, and it had still taken him over 50 days. Ethan learned in no time at all. Was Ethan gifted in everything? University, gardening, chess, cooking, and now driving? He wondered if, in their mother's womb, Ethan had absorbed all the nutrients, leaving him underdeveloped. The thought was plain on his face. Ethan saw it and explained calmly that he often drove the delivery truck for his boss when he worked at the nursery part-time. He'd known how since high school, he just never got his license. This made Leo feel slightly better. He got out and let Ethan take the wheel, but watching him smoothly park the car in the tight spot still filled him with an indescribable sourness. He had also known how to drive in high school. Why wasn't he as good at parking? As Ethan walked towards him, Leo felt a wave of discomfort. He quickly looked away, unable to meet his gaze. Ethan pretended not to notice. He reached out and brushed a finger through Leo's hair, smiling. "It's a little messy." Leo froze, the tips of his ears turning bright red. He realized he had been leaning his head to one side, messing up his hair. Had Ethan noticed he was just spacing out and mentioned his hair to snap him out of it? He snuck a glance at Ethan, but his expression was nothing but warm and friendly. "Let's go," Ethan said, heading toward the dealership. Leo followed, jogging to catch up, determined to be useful when it came to picking a car. The salesman's smile faded when he heard their budget was under $5,000. The commission would be tiny. He gestured toward a side door. "The lot's out there. If you see something you like, let me know, and I'll get the keys for a test drive." Leo had never been treated with such indifference. He was about to demand a different salesman, but Ethan was already walking toward the door. Leo followed, his displeasure evident. "His attitude is terrible. I'm going to complain later." Ethan was unbothered. "There's no need. He hasn't done anything." Leo was incredulous. "He's looking down on you because you can't afford a nice car. That's a fact," Ethan said with a slight smile. "If I had money, I wouldn't be looking at used cars." Leo fell silent. Ethan was so calm. The lot was huge, filled with cars of every make and model under a large awning. Price and condition details were displayed on the windshields. Ethan focused on cars under $5,000. He stopped to look at a few domestic four-seater electric cars, priced around $3,000. Leo felt useless. He had never even heard of these brands. How was he supposed to advise Ethan? An idea struck him. He discreetly took a photo and sent it to Miles. "Quick, which of these is the best?" Miles replied almost immediately, "They're all garbage." "Why are you asking?" "I know they're not great, but this is the budget. Just pick one." A moment later, Miles replied, "Ethan?" Leo's heart skipped a beat. He said one thing and Miles guessed. He typed back, "Yeah." A minute passed. "The white one is passable." Leo told Ethan the white one. Ethan wasn't picky. As long as it hadn't been in an accident and was fuel efficient, it was fine. He smiled. "Let's test it out." They called the salesman who brought the keys. Ethan took them and handed them to Leo. "You drive. If it's okay, we'll take this one." Leo was surprised. "Me?" Ethan touched his neck, a slight frown on his face. "My neck is acting up again. I'll have to trouble you." Noticing the word again, Leo was stunned. His neck? A neck problem? That seemed like an old person's ailment. He knew it was painful. One of his high school teachers had neck problems so bad he could barely stand up straight. But that teacher was in his 50s. Leo took the keys and drove the car around the lot. His own car was an Audi. This domestic electric car felt barely functional in comparison. But he didn't find any obvious problems. When he returned, Ethan had already negotiated the price down from $3,200 to $3,100. The salesman was on the phone with his boss. He came back and confirmed the price. Leo gave Ethan his assessment of the car. Ethan nodded and decisively bought it, following the salesman inside to sign the paperwork. Ethan read the contract meticulously, his head slightly bowed. Leo watched him, still thinking about his neck. He was only 18. How could he have neck problems? While Ethan was signing, Leo searched online for the causes of cervical spine issues. 1. Maintaining a single posture for long periods of work. 2. Driving for long periods. 3. Looking down at a phone for long periods. 4. Congenital issues. He ruled out 2 and 3. That left 1 and 4. He himself was perfectly healthy. As twins, Ethan should be too, right? Just then, his phone buzzed. A friend was inviting him to play hockey that afternoon. He was in no mood. He replied, "Not in the mood." As he was about to exit the app, he saw a new post on his feed. It was Caleb. They hadn't spoken since Leo returned his things. He had forgotten to block him. A complicated feeling washed over him. He had confirmed that Caleb was in love with him, and Caleb had called him cheap and said he wasn't worthy of Julian. That was what had angered him most. But now that he had calmed down, he didn't really want to cut ties with him completely. He looked at the post. It was a picture of an elegant, classic-style hospital corridor. The caption read, "Stayed up with the old man all night. Still on duty. Arthur Croft was in the hospital again?" Caleb had mentioned his grandfather's high blood pressure. Did that mean Julian would be there? The post was from a minute ago. Leo's heart pounded. He saved the image and did a reverse image search. It was a local private hospital. He looked it up on the map. It was less than a mile away. An idea struck him. He hadn't gotten Ethan a New Year's gift yet. He could take him to the hospital to get his neck checked out as a gift. And he might run into Julian. The thought banished all his gloom. He hadn't seen Julian in so long. He missed him desperately. A cool voice cut through his thoughts. "Done. Let's go." Leo looked up from his phone, his eyes shining. "Bro, let me take you to the hospital to get your neck checked. My treat. You can't ignore something like that. I had a teacher with the same problem, and it affected his whole life." This was an unexpected turn, but it fit Ethan's plan perfectly. He smiled. "All right, let's find a nearby hospital then." This was exactly what Leo wanted. He grinned. "There's a great one nearby, with the best doctors in the city." He paused. Neck problems would fall under orthopedics, right? He pulled out his phone again, his eyes bright. "My dad saw an orthopedist there when he sprained his ankle. I'll call him and get the doctor's name." Ethan's smile was serene. "Okay." He wrote down the delivery address for the car. A nursery on the outskirts of town where he had worked during his high school summers. Leo kept checking the time, anxious but not wanting to rush Ethan. As soon as Ethan came out of the dealership, he grabbed his arm. "My dad contacted the doctor. We can go straight to his office." Ethan let himself be led. They got in the car and sped toward the hospital. It was only a few minutes away. The hospital looked more like a high-end private club than a medical facility. A nurse in a pristine blue uniform greeted them at the entrance, confirming they were there to see Dr. Evans in orthopedics on the 3rd floor. In the elevator, Leo checked the time again. It was almost 11. He turned to Ethan. "Bro, a friend's grandfather is in this hospital too. I'll drop you at the doctor's office, then go say hi." Ethan smiled faintly. "Okay." The nurse overheard and asked which department his friend was in. Leo wasn't sure. High blood pressure. Internal medicine? He added, "It's Arthur Croft." The name was recognized immediately. He's in room 777. Arthur Croft was superstitious about the number 7. Everything from his license plate to his phone number had to include it. Leo knew this. Caleb had told him. He had also told him his own lucky number was 11. At the time, Leo had thought it was odd. Now he knew. 11 was the month of his birth. He suddenly realized that besides Julian, he would also run into Caleb. Awkward. When the elevator doors opened, he changed his mind. He looked at Ethan. Bro, on second thought, let's go together after your appointment. At this time, Julian would have already left the hospital. Ethan's eyes curved. Sure. The doctor, a man with white hair, looked them over and handed Ethan a form for an X-ray and an MRI. Leo paid for the tests. There was no wait. 10 minutes later, they were back in the doctor's office. The doctor looked at the results and asked Ethan if he had any other symptoms besides neck pain. Dizziness, Ethan replied. It had started the day before his college entrance exams. He had been so dizzy he couldn't stop throwing up. His adoptive mother had given him some pills. He didn't know what they were, but they gave him a high fever. He had been terrified of missing the exam. It was his only way out. He had forced himself to get up and drink a large glass of salt water. The next day, the world was still spinning, but less violently. He had taken the exam with a pale face. He later suspected it was related to his neck. The doctor read from his file. Your cervical spine is like that of a man in his early 40s. The degeneration is severe. That's what's causing the dizziness and vomiting. It's compressing the nerves. Leo was horrified. 40 years old? Was it that serious? He looked at Ethan, who remained calm. The doctor closed the file. He didn't prescribe any medication. He told Ethan to stand perfectly straight against a wall for 15 minutes every day. If it didn't improve in 6 months, he should come back. Ethan nodded and thanked him. Leo was confused. No medicine? Was it serious or not? In the elevator, Ethan pressed the button for the 7th floor. Leo suddenly remembered. I forgot to buy a gift. Let's go buy one first. Ethan just nodded. They went to the hospital's gift shop, which sold beautifully arranged fruit baskets starting at $100. Leo carefully selected a basket with 2 types of premium apples he knew Arthur Croft liked, plus another mixed fruit basket. Ethan stood by silently. He knew Arthur Croft was a snob. He had only reluctantly allowed Ethan's mother, Serena, to marry his son because she was pregnant with a boy. When she miscarried, he had been furious. It was only when she became pregnant with her second son that there was a brief period of peace in the family. He looked down on Serena for her humble origins. He would look down on Leo, too. In the original story, Arthur's opposition was a major obstacle for Caleb and Leo. Okay, let's go, Leo said, returning with the baskets. Ethan offered to help, but Leo insisted they weren't heavy. Ethan smiled. This friend must be very important to you. Leo's ears turned red, his heart pounding. It wasn't the friend, it was Julian. But he couldn't say that. He took a deep breath. Let's go. They arrived at room 777. The door was solid wood with no window. Knowing Julian was inside, Leo's heart swelled with anticipation. He knocked. A gentle woman's voice called out from inside. As footsteps approached, Leo tensed visibly. The door opened. It was a young woman who recognized him from the day he had come to the Croft estate. Had he followed Julian all the way to the hospital? She politely asked who he was looking for. Leo peeked inside. Other than Arthur Croft in the bed, there was only one other person. Henry. No Julian. Not even Caleb. His shoulders slumped in disappointment. He quickly recovered, handing over the fruit baskets and introducing himself. Henry recognized his name and greeted him warmly. The woman took the baskets, her eyes landing curiously on Ethan, who had been obscured by Leo. This young man was extraordinarily good-looking. Ethan met her gaze and smiled. She returned it, slightly flustered. Henry saw Ethan too, noting the resemblance to Leo but thinking nothing more of it. He welcomed Leo, Indiana. Leo greeted Henry politely, then turned to Arthur Croft and asked if he was feeling better. He wanted to call him Dad. Arthur looked up, his gaze bypassing Leo and settling on Ethan. And who is this? Leo was about to speak when he realized Arthur wasn't looking at him. His heart sank. Even his grandfather preferred Ethan. Ethan introduced himself gracefully. "Hello, my name is Ethan." Arthur nodded. "A fine name." Just then, footsteps approached. The door was open, and Caleb walked in, staring at his phone, his face a mask of annoyance. Ethan still wasn't answering his calls. He stopped short, his eyes locking on the back of the person in front of him. Leo, facing the door, saw him first. So he was here. He decided to make the first move, plastering a smile on his face and raising a hand to greet him. Caleb strode toward him. Leo panicked. His father and grandfather were right there. He couldn't. He took a step forward, his hands up in a placating gesture. "Caleb, it's been a while." Caleb shoved past him, sending him stumbling backward. The small of his back hit the metal bed rail with a painful thud. He barely registered the pain, his eyes wide with shock as he stared at Caleb. Caleb only had eyes for Ethan. He grabbed Ethan's shoulders, his grip tight, his jaw clenched. "What are you doing here?" Everyone in the room stared, confused. Arthur's voice was stern. "Caleb." Caleb finally seemed to realize where he was, but he didn't let go of Ethan. Ethan calmly but firmly removed Caleb's hands from his shoulders. He smiled coolly. "I was accompanying Leo to visit his friend's grandfather. Turns out it was you." Only then did Caleb look at Leo. He realized he hadn't thought about him in a long time. Leo was completely stunned, his mind reeling. Henry broke the silence, asking how Leo's friend also knew Caleb. Caleb's expression shifted. After a moment, he said, "Yes, we're..." He stressed the words, "good friends." Arthur's expression soured. He told them he was tired and that they should leave, but that Caleb was to stay. Caleb's eyes followed Ethan, but Ethan didn't look at him again. Leo followed Ethan out in a daze. It wasn't until the elevator reached the ground floor that he finally spoke. "You know Caleb? When? How come I didn't know?" The elevator doors closed, but no one pressed a button. Ethan's gaze was lowered. "Couldn't tell you." The pain in his back flared. Leo's voice became shrill. "What do you mean you couldn't tell me?" He was furious now. He remembered. That time Caleb went to Ethan's apartment, he wasn't looking for him. He was looking for Ethan. Caleb had been lying to him all along. Ethan looked up, his clear eyes reflecting Leo's angry face. "We're twins. Caleb wanted to pay me to take your place. Is that clear enough for you?" The color drained from Leo's face. After a simple lunch, Ethan spent the afternoon at a bookstore. He headed home around 4. The sky was darkening, and a cold wind suggested snow was on its way. As he neared his building, the streetlights flickered on. He saw the familiar car in the parking lot. His phone was warm in his pocket. Julian got out of the car, his dark eyes catching the orange glow of the lights. "I found a good spot for night fishing. I came to get some of your bait." Ethan nodded. He took a few steps, then turned back, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "I haven't been fishing in a long time. I'm getting an itch. Any chance I could tag along tonight?" Julian asked if he had eaten dinner. Ethan shook his head. Julian gestured toward his trunk with his chin. "I usually roast some sweet potatoes when I fish. There's enough for both of us. If you don't like them, you can bring something else." The invitation was clear. Ethan's smile widened. No need. I'll just catch my own dinner. He started up the stairs, then turned back. Julian, can you wait 15 minutes? He pointed to his neck. My neck's been bothering me. The doctor told me to stand against a wall for 15 minutes every day. Julian nodded. The boy ran up the stairs, the sound of his footsteps echoing faintly. A sudden, sharp feeling clenched in Julian's chest. 20 minutes later, Ethan emerged, carrying his fishing gear. Julian was still waiting. Sorry for the wait. Ethan went to the back of the car, but before he could open it, the trunk door lifted automatically. Julian had opened it from the front. Ethan wasn't surprised. He efficiently loaded his gear. Julian's gaze was intense. He was right. Ethan was no longer reserved around him. He had called him by his name. It wasn't his imagination. As Ethan went to close the trunk, it closed by itself. Julian had already walked around and opened the passenger door for him. The car was warm inside. Ethan buckled his seatbelt, his eyes falling on the custom holder for a thermos in the center console. He looked up at Julian, a smile in his eyes. You brought the ginger tea. He remembered the thermos from the day he had fallen into the frozen lake. Julian was surprised. You were conscious then? A little, Ethan admitted, holding up his thumb and forefinger to show a small space. If Ethan was a work of art, his hands were the only flawed part. The calluses had faded but were still visible, giving them a different kind of perfection. Julian looked away, pulling the car out of the parking lot. The sky was dark, the highway nearly empty. Next time you can just call, Ethan said suddenly. You don't have to drive all the way here. Julian tapped his finger on the steering wheel. This is only the second time I've made a special trip. The first had been on the holiday. Ethan nodded. I guess I should thank my bait. He smiled softly. How many fish did you catch with it last time? The whole lake. Ethan was genuinely surprised. The whole lake? Was it too strong? Julian's voice was deep. It would make a man drunk. Ethan didn't reply, just stared out at the dark road ahead. He didn't ask where they were going or how long it would take. Julian spoke first. There are snacks in the console. It's another 3 hours. Eat something if you're hungry. Ethan wasn't hungry, but he opened the console anyway. It was deep and filled with small snacks. Chocolate, dried pineapple, mango, small sweet buns. He took a bag of dried pineapple. He had developed a taste for it after the pineapple shrimp. He tore open a corner of the small bag, took out one of the 2 or 3 slices inside, and offered it to Julian. Want a piece? Sure. He held it out, and Julian took it with his free hand, popping the whole slice into his mouth. Ethan held the second piece. Want another? Julian's fingers, which had brushed against Ethan's, returned to the steering wheel. He took the next exit off the highway. You have it. Ethan turned to the window and took a slow bite. The car fell silent again. Julian turned on the music. A soft, gentle melody filled the car. Ethan finished the pineapple and didn't touch the other snacks. His phone vibrated. He pulled it out. The caller ID was 3. The date he had died in a car crash in his previous life, at the age of 21. It was Caleb's contact name. Ethan declined the call and turned off his phone. At that moment, Caleb heard the automated message. The person you are calling is on another line. He tried again. The number you have dialed is switched off. Ethan had hung up on him and turned off his phone. Caleb shoved his phone in his pocket, frustrated. He had been thinking about what happened at the hospital. He desperately missed Ethan. When he saw his back, his heart had seized. When he grabbed his shoulders, he had wanted to pull him into a hug. It was his grandfather who had interrupted him. He couldn't wait any longer. He went to his grandfather's bed. "Grandpa, I'm gonna go home and take a shower." His grandfather saw through him. "As long as you're not going to see those good-for-nothing friends of yours. I'll be back early tomorrow," Caleb said, grabbing his coat and running out. Arthur Croft shook his head. He called for the bodyguard assigned to his grandson. When the man arrived, breathless, Arthur took a slow sip of tea and began his interrogation. "Has my grandson been seeing that Leo Miller boy often lately?" He had known for a long time that Caleb had feelings for Leo. He had dismissed it as a teenage phase that would pass. But it had been years. It was not a good sign. The bodyguard hesitated. Then, since he was only asked about Leo, he didn't mention Ethan. He confirmed that Caleb was still seeing him. Arthur's face darkened. He smashed his teacup on the floor. By the dark, quiet lake, a single orange lamp glowed. A fire crackled in a small pit with a wire rack over it. On one side, a small kettle was boiling. On the other, several sweet potatoes were roasting, their sweet scent filling the air. They had cast their lines and now they waited. Julian leaned back in his chair, flipping through a novel with one hand and turning the sweet potatoes with the other. He set the book face down, picked up a potato with a thick wad of paper towels, and handed it to Ethan. "It should be done." Ethan took it. It was still piping hot. He carefully peeled back the skin, revealing the golden, soft flesh inside. He took a bite. It was creamy and sweet. He had had roasted sweet potatoes before from street vendors, but they had always been dry and fibrous. This was different. Once you taste something truly sweet, you can't help but want more. A drop of water hit his head. He looked up, and another landed in his eye. It was cool and wet. He looked at the lake. Rain was beginning to ripple the surface. "It's raining," he said softly. Julian stood up. "There's an umbrella in the trunk." He returned not just with the umbrella, but also with a cashmere blanket, which he tossed over Ethan's head. He opened the umbrella. It was huge, sheltering their small camp. The rain began to fall harder, pattering against the umbrella. The kettle began to whistle. Ethan held the warm sweet potato, the heat seeping into his palms. He tilted his head, and the blanket slid down to his shoulders. "Neck bothering you again?" Julian asked. Ethan looked at the sweet potato. "You know something is too sweet, but you can't help trying it anyway. I guess that's just human nature." He finished the last bite. "This is natural sweetness. A few more won't hurt." This was the third thing Julian had discovered Ethan liked. He handed his own potato to him. And human nature is also to keep trying. Ethan looked at him for a second, then took it. They ate in silence, the only sounds the crackling fire and the falling rain. Downtown it wasn't raining, but it was bitterly cold. Caleb had taken a taxi to Ethan's apartment. He now sat huddled on the doorstep, a cardboard box in his lap. He had been there since 11, when he saw the lights in the third-floor window were off. He was there to explain that his feelings for Leo were in the past. He finally understood why Ethan had been so cold. They were brothers. Ethan would never take anything that belonged to his brother, including him. Even though Ethan liked him so much, he had to tell him that he understood, that he knew where his heart truly lay now. He was in love with him. He was in love with Ethan. Something moved in the box. He lifted a flap, and a small, fluffy kitten peeked out. He shushed it and pushed it back down. He just wanted Ethan to open the door and see him waiting. The rain stopped around 5 in the morning. The lake was calm. The rain had washed away all the bait. As they were packing up, Ethan turned his phone back on. A message from Leo, sent at 1:02 a.m. Did you agree to it? He stared at the words, a wave of nausea rising from the pit of his stomach. A deep, profound disgust. He turned off the screen and looked up. Julian was loading the last of the gear into the trunk. His figure slightly blurred in the dawn light. Ethan watched him for a long time. When Julian closed the trunk, he walked over. Are you in a hurry to get back? Julian asked if he wanted to fish more. Ethan shook his head. I'm tired. Can we rest for a bit before we leave? The nausea was still churning inside him. He knew he would fall asleep as soon as the car started moving. A hint of a smile touched Julian's lips. Do you think I'm some kind of superhero? Ethan looked at him, confused. Julian's heart gave a heavy thud. A comic book character, he explained, his voice soft in the morning mist. He was born with a genetic disorder and relies on machines to live. But he's also a genius. He rewrote his own cells, repaired his body, and never needs to sleep. He rubbed his temples. I'm just a normal person. I need some sleep before I can drive. You're not a normal person, Ethan said suddenly. Julian looked at him. Ethan's eyes were clear, a slow smile spreading across his face. You're a workaholic. You don't even rest on holidays. I'm not a workaholic. I'm just interested in my work, Julian said, his gaze deep. It would be the same with anything else. He opened the back door of the car. You sleep in the back. He got into the driver's seat. The back seat was spacious enough for a grown man to lie down. There were 2 black pillows. Julian was taking off his jacket. Take off your shoes, he said without turning around. Or your feet will be swollen when you wake up. Ethan took off his boots and his jacket, lay down on his side, and pulled his jacket over himself like a blanket. The car's heater was on, and it felt safe and warm. He was exhausted. He looked at the back of the driver's seat, then set an alarm on his phone for 1 hour. He was asleep in minutes. After a while, Julian turned around. Ethan was curled up, his hands tucked under his chin, his long legs bent. His jacket had fallen to the floor, along with his phone. Julian unfolded the cashmere blanket and gently draped it over him. Ethan stirred, burrowing deeper into the blanket. His long eyelashes brushed against Julian's fingers, soft and slightly ticklish. Julian's expression darkened. He was about to pick up Ethan's jacket when the phone screen lit up. A local number. He let it ring. When it rang a second time, he answered, in case it was an emergency. It was the car salesman, calling to say the car had been delivered to the nursery. Julian told him he understood and hung up. He picked up the jacket and the phone. As he did, the phone buzzed. It was the alarm Ethan had set for 8 a.m. Julian turned it off. A new message notification popped up. From Leo. Bro? You still asleep? Bro? Julian's brow furrowed slightly. When Ethan woke up, he was disoriented for a few seconds. He was in Julian's car. His phone and jacket were gone. He looked toward the driver's seat. Julian was still sitting upright. Had he slept like that? Hearing him move, Julian opened his eyes and checked his watch. He had also slept for a few hours. He opened the console, found a bag of dried pineapple, and passed it back without looking. Eat this. There's a fish house down the mountain. We'll have lunch there. Ethan was surprised. Lunch? What time is it? 1:23 p.m. He had slept that long. No wonder he felt so refreshed. He sat up. I answered a call for you, Julian said as he started the car. The car you bought was delivered. Okay, Ethan said, opening the bag of pineapple. Want some? No thanks. As they started down the mountain, Julian added, "They're a bit tough to chew." Ethan chewed on a piece. "Is there something wrong with your teeth?" The car fell silent. After a moment, Julian said slowly, "My teeth are fine. The pineapple is just a bit hard." They arrived at the fish house. It was a popular spot. The owner recognized Julian and personally led them to a private room upstairs. He recommended the fresh fish hot pot. Ethan looked at Julian, who nodded. The fish was sliced paper-thin and served raw, to be cooked in the boiling broth. Julian cooked a piece and placed it in Ethan's bowl. "Try it." It was surprisingly crisp and delicious. Julian smiled. "Next time, it will taste even better with fish we caught ourselves." "Next time." Ethan swallowed and smiled back. "I think so too." They ate quietly. When they were back in the car, Ethan sat in the passenger seat. As he buckled his seatbelt, he said softly, "My treat next time." Julian started the car. "Do you always keep such careful score?" Ethan looked ahead. "No. No one ever required me to before." Julian gripped the steering wheel. "Home?" "No," Ethan replied. "To the Rainbow Bridge Orphanage, if it's not too much trouble." He knew Caleb would likely be at his apartment. It wasn't time for him and Julian to meet yet, and he needed to check on Serena's situation. Julian dropped him off but didn't go in. As Ethan got out, he asked, "Can I leave my fishing gear in your trunk? It'll be a month and a half before I get my license. I'll have to bum a ride from you for the next fishing trip." Julian asked a different question. On the 15th, the orphanage is invited to the opening of the Croft theme park. "Are you going?" Ethan smiled. "I've never been to a theme park. If the tickets are free, of course I'm going." "See you next week," Julian said and drove away. At the orphanage, Ethan helped the children make dumplings. He was eating with the director, Aunt Zhang, when he bit down on something hard. It was a coin. Aunt Zhang was delighted. "Good luck, Ethan. You got the lucky dumpling. You're going to have a great year." Her expression then fell. She remembered that last year, Serena had been the one to get the lucky dumpling. "Ethan," she asked, "have you been in touch with Serena lately?" Ethan said he hadn't been able to reach her. "She quit," Aunt Zhang said with a sigh. "She called on the holiday. I could tell something was wrong. She loves the children so much." She recounted a story of how, years ago, Serena had personally cared for a baby girl with a cleft lip and HIV, even using her own savings for the girl's surgery. She hung up so quickly, Aunt Zhang finished, as if she was afraid of something. Ethan had the information he needed. He finished his food quickly. Later that evening, Julian was at his friend Chris's apartment. Chris was drunk and heartbroken, and Sean had called Julian for backup. The place was a wreck. As Julian was leaving, Sean, who had hitched a ride, noticed the snacks in the center console. "Looks like things are going well. Already stocking up on your boyfriend's snacks." Julian hated snacks. Sean reached for a handful. Julian didn't say anything, but as he started the car, he let it jerk forward. Sean caught off balance, bumped his head. He rubbed his forehead, a wicked grin on his face. So protective. Can't even have one of his snacks. "Don't touch his things," Julian said flatly. "If you're hungry, I'll buy you dinner." Sean sat up straight, his expression serious. He had a good impression of Ethan, but an 18-year-old working in a bar who could also mix perfect drinks. His background couldn't be simple. He had known Julian for 30 years, and he had never seen him like this. It was almost 8 when Ethan got home. Caleb was waiting for him on the stairs, holding a cardboard box. The scene was familiar. In the original story, Caleb would often show up like this with gifts to apologize after a fight with Leo. Now it was Ethan's turn. "What are you doing here?" Ethan asked calmly. "I've been waiting for you for a day and a night," Caleb burst out. "What do you think I'm doing?" "I didn't ask you to wait." Caleb softened. "Ethan, please don't be like this with me. I don't know what to do anymore." A meow came from the box. He remembered his secret weapon. He rushed down the stairs and opened the box. Inside was a beautiful ragdoll kitten. "A gift for you," he said, his eyes full of longing. "Please don't be mad at me anymore." Ethan frowned. "Take it away." "But I thought you liked cats." "I don't." Caleb was at a loss. "But you were feeding." He trailed off. Feeding stray cats didn't mean he liked them. He felt a frustration he had never felt with Leo. "Fine, I'll throw it away." "It's your cat," Ethan said coolly. "Do what you want with it. But please don't come looking for me again." Caleb's eyes widened. "Who are you afraid will misunderstand?" Ethan looked at him then, and in the dim light, his pale eyes seemed to turn a deep, complex purple. Caleb flinched, looking away. Ethan spoke slowly, clearly. "Caleb, you're disgusting." He walked past him and went upstairs. The sound of the door closing echoed in the stairwell. Caleb cursed under his breath. He had messed up again. His phone vibrated. It was his grandfather again. He had to go. As he walked out of the building, a stray cat darted in front of him. He stopped. He understood. Leo loved cats, and he had tried to use a cat to win over Ethan. Annoyed, he tossed the box with the meowing kitten to the side of the road and drove off. After the car was gone, Ethan came back downstairs. He crouched by the box and opened it. The kitten eagerly licked the pet-safe butter he had smeared on his palm. He gave it some water, then took a video of it and posted it on a local pet adoption website. He spent the next hour carefully vetting the responses, finally arranging for a young woman with a stable job and her own apartment to pick up the kitten in the morning. He took the kitten home for the night. The next day, after the girl had happily taken the kitten, Ethan spent the day reading. In the late afternoon, he went to the small supermarket by his building. He bought tomatoes, leafy greens, small potatoes, and a good piece of beef. He also picked up a small container of blueberries and a package of pineapple. On his way to the checkout, he passed the housewares aisle, paused, and then walked down it until he found the slippers. He chose a pair of plain black men's slippers in the largest size available. Back home, he made a hearty beef stew. He ate 2 bowls of rice, cleaned the kitchen, and studied until 11 before taking a shower. Before bed, he stepped on the scale. His weight was finally going up. 121 pounds. After finishing his work, Julian went to his family's estate. He went to the study, which was more like a small library, and retrieved a full set of superhero comics from the top shelf. They had been a gift from his grandmother for getting the best grades in his elementary school. He packed the 36 volumes into a box. As he was leaving, his father, brother, and Caleb walked in. His brother, Henry, cheerfully announced that they were having a dinner party the next day to celebrate their father's recovery. He insisted Julian stay. His father scoffed that he was too busy. Caleb asked who was invited. Henry mentioned several family friends and also the Millers. He remarked that Caleb was good friends with their youngest son. Julian spoke for the first time. "What time tomorrow?" Ethan saw on social media that Arthur Croft was hosting a dinner party. Knowing Julian would be there, Leo had posted a dozen excited updates. This was 3 years earlier than in the original story. Arthur had invited the Millers to send A to Leo by announcing Caleb's engagement. This was an unexpected bonus from Ethan's hospital plan. Arthur, mistakenly believing Caleb had spent the night with Leo, had arranged the dinner. Ethan finished his 15 minutes against the wall. He set his alarm for 3 a.m., 2 hours earlier than usual. He woke before it went off. He had already booked a car to take him to the city's largest wholesale market. The driver was chatty, surprised to see someone so young heading to the market so early. Ethan politely said it was for work. The driver praised his filial piety. At the market, which was already bustling in the pre-dawn darkness, Ethan didn't go into the main area. He went to the adjacent delivery department. The manager, a woman in her 30s, was surprised to see him. "Looking for temporary work?" she asked. They were desperate for help during the holiday, but she looked at his clean, fair skin and doubted he could handle the heavy lifting. Ethan smiled. "You can try me out. If you're not satisfied, you don't have to pay me." The woman agreed. 2 hours later, she was very satisfied. She paid him a full day's wage in advance and told him to go get some breakfast before the next big shipment arrived. After that, he would ride along with a truck into the city to unload, and then he would be done for the day. After a cheap but filling breakfast of steamed buns and congee, Ethan got a call from the manager. He was to help load vegetables onto a truck. It was 8 o'clock, right on schedule. The produce was incredibly fresh, destined for the kitchens of the wealthy. For 2 hours, he worked without stopping, loading 3 trucks with fruits, vegetables, and meat. Then, he climbed into the lead truck, heading into the city.